Hello, hello. Hi, guys. Anybody around? How is everybody? I see 333s in the house. Dimple. Hi, Dimple. So I was racing to get here. This is crazy day. Um, anyway, I hope everything's good. I was looking at 333, or I should call, I don't know, should I call you for real? Hey, um, and your question, which was kind of interesting. So I'm just going to hop right into it, okay? Since we're kind of short here on people at the moment. Why do you think so many 55 plus applicants end up in the appeals process? Does the adjudicators not always consider the grids? No, I believe the adjudicators always consider the grids because they are trained under the actual laws, the federal laws that they have to use when evaluating a claim. Here's the issue. For everyone that's over 50, well, technically even under, but it's never going to, for the most part, pan out. Pardon me. Your RFC, residual functional capacity, the assessment of what that is, which is done by generally, I think, the medical expert at the SSA after he has all of those records that exist on initial. Sometimes it's none. Sometimes it's, I go to my PCP because my back hurts. You know, it's really minimal. And I have a health therapist, so, you know, I should be found disabled. And they might very well be, but their evidence is definitely not going to show it. So people come into it with this idea that what happens to be true that they know about their body and their mind is going to be evident. And by the way, if you guys can't hear me, tell me, is going to be evident because they applied and they're saying it so on the application. And that's just not the way it works, because by law, and this is law, this is not just an adjudicator or the SSA trying to be tough. It has to be based on acceptable medical evidence, objective medical evidence. Some subjectivity is allowed also. So they have to, so the RFC that their evidence says they have left, that's residual functional capacity, what's left that they could still do task-wise for work. That has to meet a certain threshold for them to even fall into the grid applicability. It's just not being 50 or being 55 that gets you to have the grids work in your favor. They won't even, that means they can be considered the certain one that would apply to that age, but that does not mean you have to win under it. It just gives you the opportunity to prove the 3 prongs that every age group has to prove, right? So at 55, they have to prove that they can't do medium level work. Medium level work is over 20 pounds. Woo, you know, they have to have some sort of medical proof that their symptoms and limitations from established medically determined impairments that are found to be severe, and then also found to be severe enough to make it where they cannot do medium level work. And that would generally mean, just to repeat that, and you guys know we have these definitions in other videos, including probably the grids, have to be able to lift like 25 pounds occasionally during the day, which is about 1/3 of the day, or up to 1/3 of the day. I'm sorry, I take that back. Frequently during the day, which is up to could be up to 2/3 of the day, and then up to 50 pounds occasionally. So if you just have an MRI that says I got a couple bulges, maybe some foraminal stenosis, that's not going to say you can't do medium level work. Half the people doing medium level work have that. So that's not by definition causing an inability to do that kind of work. If you have additional evidence that shows that, yeah, that is a problem. My back does, stop it. My back does hurt me every day. I'm really gentle with it. I would never be running around lugging 25 pounds of anything. If I ever lift 25 pounds, it's like my grandkid and it's really, really gentle or whatever. They have to have not just their saying about that, they have to have evidence. That's why I'm always encouraging people to, and I do this usually in our first interview, by and large, it's just kind of what comes out of my mouth. Physical therapy, other conservative therapies that could be related to the pain that comes from living a pretty normal life, which is not doing something very heavy, but something far less. If you have a light lifestyle when you're not working because you couldn't do your prior job and you have no idea what you're getting into and you don't know if there's anything else you could do full time, if that already causes you pain, being in that light environment where you might even be a sedentary environment, so everyone's is gonna differ, but if you are in that, goodness, sorry, she's been in her condo all day, so it was her first time in here. If you have that kind of difficulty when you're not working because you're out because you're disabled, or you assert you're disabled, then you should be following up for that to get the information, which is medical treatment of a continuous and durational period. So going forward, not a one-hit wonder, not just an MRI that shows there's something less than 20 years old in your back. That's fine, but all of us have that and we all work. So you need more. You need the objective diagnostic is super important because it shows there's an impairment, because otherwise there would be no proof that there's an impairment. That's the objective proof of the diagnosis. Forming stenosis or, reticulopathy or whatever it is. Then after that, it's the other evidence that helps show how severe that affects you personally, because it's not affecting John Doe over there who's still, managing the supermarket, or doing whatever other kind of job. So it's the other things of how you're treating it that really help define how severe the limitations are that you are trying to overcome. So when we get to going back to your question, 333, they end up appealing because they don't have that yet. And if they don't have a lawyer or a non-attorney rep who tells them they need to go get this, then they're probably going to be denied on recon too. And if they still don't, they are going to be denied by the ALJ. 55-year-olds do get denied if they don't listen. I have some very lovable people who are just very resistant to getting treatment because it's inconvenient. There's often copays. It's not that they can't afford the particular ones I'm thinking about. They can afford the copays, but very resistant, very sure that this is what's wrong with me. Yeah, but you've been denied twice, before I was involved. But nonetheless, and sometimes when I am involved, because it's just not rising to the level. And then, yes, it is harder, 333, I think, with the adjudicators, because I feel like they really have to follow these rigid set of rules and are not allowed to use their discretion in the same way that an ALJ is. ALJ, guys, for anybody who's new, is administrative law judge. So the adjudicators at the DDS on initial and recon are more confined. They don't have the stature of a judge that can use a little bit of his discretion. He still needs to find all these things we're talking about, but he can use a little more discretion in terms of the things that are not objective to come to a belief, a fact finding that this indeed would prevent that person from, doing that medium level work. Can't do the, 20 to 50 pound range. Certainly not on at least a third of a day for the 25 or whatever, over 20. So it is because they have not, and I'm going to say this as a general rule, because they have not gotten their evidence yet. And whether they choose to do what they have to do for their case, or they think, I'm entitled and they just better believe me, that's up to them. We nag them a bit, I am a bit of a nag with my clients. If they're being a little, most of them are not slacky. Most of them just didn't know, and then they go and do it. And sometimes they do it when it's very hard for them. Transportation can be a problem, particularly for the single people. And I mean, if they don't have insurance and they don't come from some money or have a bunch saved, one of the first things we talk about way back on our first conversation is, so how are you going to pay for your treatment? Your follow-ups, where you can do your complaints to your doctor, not even just physical therapy and stuff, but where you just want to complain about your limitations and your pain. Be the grumpy complainer with every every medical provider you see, and that's true of physical or mental. And you can do mental complaints to your physical too. Like if your concentration and focus are just not like they used to be, and you feel like you can't even remember a short set of instructions, much less the fine details of what you used to do for work, where you could just bounce around and do that mental multitasking again, start talking about it. Because the more you mention it, the more it's going to be more likely to show up in more records. And the more it shows up in records that you complain about, the more credible it becomes. It's just human nature. It's natural. It's common sense. People that are troubled by something talk about it. Now, that's not to say that people that haven't don't have it. A lot of us are, I mean, I'm the biggest sinner in this. I don't even barely go to the doctor when I need to. And my sister gets on me all the time. She says I need to. I don't necessarily think so. But, something is pretty acute for me to go to a doctor, and then I'm telling them about it. But not about all the other like little chronic things that are limiting. Like nothing about my body is like it was when I was 20. You know what I mean? Nothing about my activities are like, I was a pretty active youngster. But if I had a claim, I would have to change my ways. I would have to be the whiner. And I say that jokingly, guys. It's not really whining. It's just being honest with the person who's supposed to hear it. So, all right. I went off long on that, guys. But it's just so important. And I guess because I've been feeling a little bit lately, like more clients than I usually have are in this hesitant thing where they don't want to go. Part of it is like a reclusive thing. Some of them are just like feeling very reclusive. We all start feeling, not all of us, many of us start feeling this way as we get older. I know I love being at home. I've become a homebody, and it's not that I don't enjoy myself when I go out, particularly if it's something fun. But if it's one of those, when I have to go to the doctor, and again, it's like once a year, it's not like the day of my week. It's like shit, But when we become more reclusive, which can happen with age, it can happen with impairments, it's just something we just don't want to leave. We just want to be comfortable, do our thing, and that's when, part of the problem of it's not going to be out there then in the medical records because you're not doing it. And then when they're out there, they just want to get to the appointment and they keep their mouth shut. It's not going to be helpful. So we nag quite a bit about it, and how it's got to be continuing, ongoing treatment. If, let's say you had PT and you're still in troubles, but they discontinued you because it wasn't working or your insurance doesn't pay for anymore, you still need to follow up with your orthopedist. He's not going to see you every month, obviously, but it might be every 3 months, but you need to, and I will say this again and again and again, make that appointment before you leave the last one. Make it, because you're going to find that when you wish you had it, now you got to wait 7 months for an appointment. I can't drive it home more, guys. Our healthcare system is becoming like Europe or like Canada in a way. It's becoming so long waits for people with good insurance, people with Medicare, people with, the VA is supposed to be decent, right? Not so much. Medicaid, forget about it. Now you're really on the wait list. It's, because it's not even like a profit motive for them to hurry up. So it's hard. So I say, be diligent. Make sure that for all the impairments you have, get your specialists, get your referrals, and make the appointments with the specialists. Do what you got to do. It will pass. And once you prevail, once you've proven it, you can pull back a bit. You do it in a strategic way, not the way that, if you get a CDR, it's going to scream improved. But you can definitely pull back quite a bit. But right now you're building the proof. Once you have the proof and you've proven it, that stuff doesn't go away. It proves that you were. The CDRs are just proving that it didn't notably improve enough for you to go and get a job. And usually by then you've passed another age grade anyway, and it's harder for the SSA to say that you've improved enough to get a job now at 55 versus 53 or whatever. And for the young people, it's even harder, however. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on that. Get your treatment, and the 55-year-olds will have zero problem. I had 2 this week, in the last 2 weeks, 33. That one on initial. And one an initial so fast, there's no fee for me. Well, it was a long initial, I might add. I want to say the better part of a year. But one of the reasons why they didn't get their date back to their onset, there was no mental health treatment until a CE in April. Now, granted, we had not been working that long together, so it's not like the person was resistant. I think it just hadn't happened yet. They were gracious enough to say, all right, the CE confirms everything she's been saying. We're going to give her 3 months earlier, which was nice because they know it didn't arise the day of the CE. So I thought that was, I don't know that they have to do that. I've seen them not do that. So they did go back a few months. That means that she will get her first check probably, I don't know, this month, next month, something like that. There will be no back benefits. Therefore, there's no contingent fee to pay me 25% of because it's 0. Now, yes, I have the option of doing a fee petition, but I decided I wasn't going to. Just due to the particular circumstances of this whole situation, and that's just my prerogative. So I did not, but that would be my right normally to do a fee petition, show what's been done, ask the SSA to approve the billable hour. Why you guys don't want a fee petition if you can avoid it, the contingency is best, is because there is no $9,200 cap that protects you. I believe there's a cap and it's way, way higher, and I don't know what it is right now, but I believe there's a cap still, but I think it's uber high. The reason why I don't know it is not because I'm stupid. It's because for every fee petition I've ever done, I've always voluntarily capped it at what the contingent fee would be. And I do that because my clients, it's not really, not that this is a matter of fault or anything like that, but it's not their fault usually. If it was their fault, maybe I would, be like, no. But it's not they expected to go back to their onset. They didn't think it was going to be, a more recent, partially favorable on a later onset. And sometimes the SSA does that, and we don't think it's right. But if that largely, because that's largely what would be the answer, I'm like, I don't want them to have a bill. So unless someone is like not someone that I feel I should extend that courtesy to, I can do a fee petition. I just don't often choose to. Because I don't want to see anybody with a bill. And it wasn't like, that's the fee petition thing. Then the 9,200 is because it always gives everybody, at least they know it's never going to go over that. I think that's important because I know in my life, I like to know what my bill is never going to go over. It's why I have a fixed mortgage and paid more for it, because I just need to know this is what I have to be responsible for, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Hi, Dimple. I'll be in and out of the live stream today. Anytime. Thanks for coming. I have another appointment just after 1 p.m. today. Okay, you're probably there now. I'm curious if I try to find some part-time work. Should I report my efforts or wait and see what happens? That is an interesting question. If you start part-time, are you going over SGA or under SGA? Obviously, that's going to be a big difference. If it's over SGA, you're going to have to be denied, but your duty is to report it. Because the reason is, if you're over SGA, you do not pass step 1 of the sequential evaluation process. And concealing that, they tell you you have to report it. So if you just don't want to get in a gym. Now, sometimes people don't think they're over SGA, they think they're under SGA, and they don't realize they're supposed to be reporting it anyway. And then they win, because nobody knows yet. It hasn't been reported by the IRS yet, because everything takes a little time. I had a fellow like this who, little did I know, went back to work and was tipping over SGA for a few months. We win the case. Then I learned that he had maybe 4 months of SGA. Now, it's true that if they knew he had the SGA at the time they were making a decision, which they would have had to deny him. And then we would have appealed. And by then he would have stopped, So it would have worked out in the end, because in the end we would backtrack that to being a failed work attempt. We did that on appeal, but it would have interrupted and caused the appeal. So in his case, he had already prevailed. So this could be a problem, except it wasn't for him because, and I gave a little spanking, like, you didn't tell me you went back, like, remember your initial paper, I don't know, you have to tell us if you go back to work so we can make sure you're not screwing yourself. So in his case, those months were, now let me try to remember, were they over TWP or over SGA or both? Over SGA is always over TWP. So for sure, he already used up a bunch of his TWP. I do think it was SGA, but it was still very part-time. And they just found that, when they review it, it's SGA, but it's not, the disability didn't end. And he's still in his trial work period. So he could have earned $10,000 a month, actually. He didn't, but. So all that affected the way that the numbers I keep in the background while he's collecting. So that if he does any more TWP months, eventually he's going to hit 9 in a 5-year period, and he's going to bump out of his trial work period. He's going to be an extended period of eligibility for 3 years. The first month he earns SGA in his extended period, he owes his benefit back for that month, but he can still collect after he stops doing the SGA. After 3 years, the first SGA month he loses disability. It's over. If he's still disabled, he has to reapply or file an expedited reinstatement application. So whether you should report it, if you're under SGA, there's no reason not to. They are going to look at it. Yes, they're going to see that you could do something or whatever. And then your medical records, which is why you want them hard, and excellent. With all those complaints all the time, including, hey, I went back to work part-time, doc, and it's killing me. Don't know how long I can last, right? Because if it is, it is. And it'd be nice to have that in the medical record. I always say err on the side of following the rules and being honest. So if you go for 2 weeks, do you have to do it within the first 2 weeks? I don't know when would be the right period of time. So that gives you a little leeway. Is it the first day you're on the job? I don't know, because what if you're not going to make it through the whole week? So probably, I wonder if the SSA would say, no, the very first day we need to know. I mean, they don't need to know before you go, obviously. So is it the first day? I don't know. I kind of feel like it would be a little bit longer than that. See how it goes, because I can't tell you how many people go for a couple days and then have to quit, or they get terminated. The employer's like, you're not really being able to keep up. No offense, but so. And of course, for all of you, if you do decide to go to work while you have a pending claim and you have an attorney or a non-attorney rep, you talk to them before you get a job, and we review that job and the pay and the hours and the schedule can be important too. Deanna's in the house. Hi, Deanna. Nice to see you, my dear. It's a verb. Deplorable alchemy. I'm deplorable too, alchemy. Yeah, that's Tasha. If you're still here, deplorable. She is an Amazon parrot. And she's super sweet. She was adopted by us less than a year ago. Awesome. She's so sweet. She's like my bestie. She really is. And I have a couple other birds, but she's really amazing. LaRocho's in the house. Hi, Lily. Good afternoon, Stephanie and everyone. Shout out from the Melbourne, Florida. Oh, LaRocho, my daughter is in Florida this week. Her and her friend got an Airbnb. Trust me, they can't afford it, but because they really wanted to do something special, I think, before they get really serious about, working. She just graduated high school a year ago. But yeah, I forget where they are. I know they went to SeaWorld, and they went to some other place. So it can't be that far. I mean, I don't know. I forget the town. Is there a Davenport or something? I don't know if that's where they stay, but anyway. They're having a good time. She's still there. They drove. Deplorable says, I just filled out my adult function report. It was so nerve-wracking. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos for guidance. I hope I did okay. Yikes. Well, if you watched the whole, I'm not even saying the whole. If you went to the playlist that we have and looked up the numbers that were known to be a little filled with landmines, depending on how you answer it. I'm sure you did fine. Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Michelle's in the house. Good morning. Earth One's in the house. Good morning to you, too. Marie's in the house. Physical therapy is now $50 a visit, and you go 3 times that is costly. I know. Everybody's insurance is different. It is. I wonder if there's a consideration for Marie. What if you do 2 times a week and then do a month? So that would be what, $400 approximately that you just, do, and then see if you can take a month off and maybe do another one. I'm just thinking of ways that you can get it in, because that stuff is, I find it really valuable. Particularly if you're vocal with your PT person, because they're going to write down how, you had to reduce the weight or whatever you had to do. Like, you couldn't finish the so-and-so, or a little limited by pain today, or said that after his last session, he was feeling a lot of pain, just starting to feel better before this, whatever it is. Most of the PTs I find to be really good. I don't know why that is. They seem sometimes better than other medical professionals in terms of recording. Can't say that's necessarily true for all. But I know they want to see improvements over time, or else it's going to be found to be not doing anything. The irony with that whole thing about improvement, I think, is sometimes improvement is not getting to the point that you'd be at if you didn't have the PT. Do you know what I mean? It's like stopping going to the gym. Pardon me. That's the Florida girl, guys. I'm just going to, she's forgetting what day it is. So, yeah, if you could, what if you arrange it differently so that you maybe aren't doing, that would be, what is that, 600 a month, 400 instead, and then I just don't go once a month, or I don't know what. I've seen that where someone's going like once a month or once every 3 weeks, and I'm like, that's not even in the medical literature as being remotely helpful. So how dare someone, a physical therapist, schedule it that way? I don't know. I question that. But 2 times a week, I think, would be probably the minimum. And if you drop to 2 times a week and you skip a month, and this is if money's tight. If you're, if someone's just being stingy with their, $50,000 savings or whatever, you might want to give up a couple thousand for it. I mean, in the end, it's going to be the difference between potentially winning your case and not winning your case. So, and then there's other conservative therapies that may or may not have the copays. So there's injections and things like that, and they're considered conservative because they're not invasive surgeries. Something to think about. Our Willie's in the house. Our Willie says, get the treatment. Yes, please. And ideally, you're doing this from initial and forward. But that's not always possible if someone doesn't know. Okay. True heroes in the house. True hero under God. 86. Okay. I have a question. If the appeal council remanded the case to go back to ALJ, administrative law judge, and in the process of waiting for a second hearing, the case gets flagged as a dire needs case, what are my odds of winning? 0. Well, I mean, 0 more. No additional chance of winning. Is it flagged because you suddenly became terminally ill? Because that's one of the dire need flags. I certainly hope not, but that could increase your chances, I'd say, of winning. Or is it because you're about to be evicted, or your house is literally got served with foreclosure papers? Those are some of the dire needs. Another one that would not change, it'll mean that if you're waiting on something, you're not going to have to wait. Like if you're waiting on an adjudicator, you're probably going to get one sooner than those that do not have a dire need. But it's not going to change the merits of your case. You follow? It doesn't put the thumb on, even though we don't think he's disabled, we're going to say he's disabled. It doesn't do that. That's not what a dire need is. It's the need for speed. And wasn't there, I think that's Maverick, isn't it, on Top Gun? We have the need for speed. So the dire need is to get you there faster. And the one that's for terminal illness, for sure, they need it. And the substance is going to also affect their chance of winning. Unfortunately, that's such a weird thing to even talk about, but it is true. I've been there, well, on the legal side. Dean of dividends, not Dean. 46-year-old male, ADHD, PTSD, BPD. I think that's borderline personality disorder, BPD. And of course, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, PTSD. We all know what that is. I have my attorney-assisted hearing sometime September, October. Okay. How do you know that it's September, October if you don't? Does that mean you just forgot the date, but you got the hearing notice? Have been diligent with ongoing treatment. Okay, I don't know what all your acronyms are there. DBT. DBT twice. PE. Don't really know what that treatment is. Assume it's all mental health, nothing physical. Inconsistent with meds. Uphill battle, but I'm confident. Well, I'm glad you're confident. I hope you have a great case, and I cross my fingers for you. LaRocha says, if I had every single thing that we needed to do virtually, I would be so glad. Even eyeglasses exist. Getting out isn't all that great anymore with all the anxiety. Oh, yeah. I think that's a lot of it. I think a lot of people that start getting reclusive, and that's those of us that aren't even like disabled or have, you know, severe impairments. Sometimes we just like to, we got a home we like. Home is our castle, you know. But then if you have anxiety of going out, and for whatever reason, sometimes we can't explain it, right? I feel like we all get a little, what do they call it? I mean, it's not even a disorder. The white coat thing where you, the white coat syndrome where we get a little, our blood pressure goes up when we're in front of a doctor, you know, now they're PAs and nurse practitioners and such, but yeah, I think there's something to that. Just by definition, going to medical, many of us don't like it, right? Yeah. I thought I heard, this is just an offshoot. I thought I heard something about, is there something now with telehealth visits where they can look in your eyes to diagnose eyeglasses? I don't know. I might have just heard wrong or mixing it up with something else. I do know when my husband suddenly had Bell's palsy and we didn't know if it was a stroke and he went to the hospital. This is out by Harrisburg. And they immediately knew it was Bell's palsy and not a stroke, which was such a relief. And he was in and out in like 2 hours. And it takes me 2.5 hours to get there. So when I'm pulling in to pick him up, he's literally on the sidewalk of the hospital, released. You know, I'm like 2.5 hours out. Woo! I mean, that was a panic trip because at that point I didn't know what they were going to find. But that was in September of 2024. But anyway, they did have a consult with a neurologist, even though they were fairly confident. Even the EMT, the people that picked him up in the ambulance were pretty confident it was Bell's palsy. They did the neurologist wasn't in the hospital. It was all on video. And he looked at certain things. I don't know if it's the way he moved his eyes and his face and stuff. The face you could see, but I think it had to do with the eyes too. So makes me wonder. Sorry, the phone is just going off the hook. I've got phone calls after this. I'm going to try to do them today and not wait till tomorrow. But yeah, anxiety, staying home. It's definitely a thing. Got to get over it for your claims. You just have to pull it up. It can be where some visits are telehealth. I would say you can't have all the physical ones that way though, because they need to They need to actually do the physical exams, the strength, you know, like those kind of things that are seem minimal, but they're physical. And also, but some of those can, I mean, I remember having like my daughter with her asthma, some that one of those was it was a follow-up, you know. So she wasn't giving her a breathing test or anything. And it was for asthma, so it wasn't like she had to hold my finger, you know, or get her undressed. So that was a telehealth. And it just can, you know, where she got the complaints more, you know, and what's better and how things are working out and stuff like that. So I think it can work for physical, but can't always be for physical. So you have to have those follow-ups. And you go to, you know, when you have to go for a blood test, you got to go for blood tests and things of that nature, or other diagnostics. Mental health is much easier by telehealth. And I think that's great because a lot of people, it's the mental health reason why we don't want to get out. You know, most of us are, you know, I think most of you, all the workers, are used to working with a little pain. So getting out because of the pain isn't the major deterrent sometimes. I think it's the hesitation because of just the mentality of doing the whole thing. So that can make a telehealth mental health treatment really okay because they're not physically need to examine you. But I think if you can do it on video, is better than doing a phone visit. Astronomically better. They can see your expressions. Either way, they can hear your voice, but I think a lot more is going to come off about your demeanor, your mood. You know, our faces tell a lot. Our posture as well. William S. is in the house. Hi, William. William says, hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Good afternoon, too, William. I just wanted to ask, this is William, what the process is for getting my information from SSA. Do I need to supply a thumb drive? No, but it is a big headache, as many here can attest to, right, guys? What you're going to want to do, I assume you want your whole file, and you have a right to get it, and they're going to try to tell you you don't. But there are POMs themselves, POMS, the Program Operations Manual, that says otherwise, and that's the book they're supposed to follow. So this would be your field office, generally speaking, and the form is the SSA 3288, William. Now, the SSA 3288 has legal information, legal misinformation. They will say, you can't just tell us you want your whole file. You better tell us which documents you want. Totally false. Totally false. If you need it, and any of you guys can do this, email assistant@joydisability.com if you need the form for getting your file from the SSA. I will share the one I would use. You will note that it has some, like a square, you know, a square added in there that says, according to POM so-and-so, you can't deny me my whole file. And I get the POMs number. And I actually attached the POMs, the actual section. So it's going to be, instead of the one page of the 3288, it might be 5 pages. But we also attached the part that says, yes, no, he does not have to have it on a CD, because who has a CD reader? And I will tell you this, I bought multiple CD readers back when I didn't know this early on. And even back before they could do this. And half the time CDs don't work. It's just, the CDs are antiquated pieces of junk. It's ridiculous. So, or the person who burned it, they left off half the stuff. Or they thought they burned it and it's empty when you get it. I'm not kidding. This was more often than not. So in my opinion, do not want it on a CD. And so on the form I use, we've also smacked in there, no CD, I have no reader. Here's the email. You can email it to me, or if you prefer, and according to the POMs, they can do this too. They can send it to you to your SSA.gov file. Now, they're gonna, for some weird reason, these clerks want to email it to you if they can't use a CD. And sometimes they'll ignore you what's in a CD anyway. And what you do is up to you. But I have the POMs that says they can email it, and I have the POMs. I believe I have the POMs that says, I think it includes the part about sending it up to their account. And also, if you have a pending claim, they can't charge you for it. So, given that, I would offer that. And anybody who wants to email, I would have it sent to you, because it's appalling what they do. And then you're probably still going to have to wait and still resend it multiple times. And I'd say if it goes over a month, maybe contact your congressperson and say, I've requested my thing. It was over 30 days ago. No. And if they try to charge you some astronomical amount, like $123, that's a problem too. They say they can do that if it's not a program purpose. But if you're a beneficiary or a claimant, I kind of think you have a program purpose. Hope that helps, William. But no, you don't. You know, they're not going to put it on your thumb there. You're not even going to be there. Baxter Taylor's in the house. Hi, Bax. May 2016, coded with CPR stroke. Oh my gosh, acute CKD. Is that chronic kidney disease? Acute seizures. Do I have a good case? That I couldn't tell you. That's 10 years ago. And I mean, that doesn't prove anything about now. So that tells me zero. What people need to know is, how are you in June of 2026? How thorough is your treatment? What are your limitations? What does your medical evidence say about your limitations? It's all about evidence of what you can and cannot do, you know, today. That's if you're filing for today. If you haven't worked since 2016 and this is the first time you're applying, I'm not going to start making speculation on this, but obviously you're not going to be able to get money going back to 2016 because there's a 12-month retroactivity limit. But Russ is in the house. Russ Dubrachovich. Oh, no, I'm saying it wrong. Dubravich, 31. Hi, Russ. How are you? Nice to meet you. I don't think we met. Hi, I live in Utah. I have dual until 65 age, or someone who has SSA or SSI. I don't know this question. I don't get correct. What is my limit of monthly income if I will try working for someone not to lose DAC? Oh, you have dual. So I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Russ, you have DAC. So you are a disabled adult child. And you have SSI. So your DAC is low enough where you're still under the SSI max, and so you get the balance from SSI. Okay. I'm not going to give you the exact figure, but for DAC, you want to stay under SGA for sure. That changes every year. I think this year it's $16.90. For SSI, it's a whole nother story. Because for every $2 you earn after the first 65 or so, you will be losing $8 of SSI. So you're going to have to do that little math, okay? I can't do it right here while everyone's hanging out and looking for answers. So just do the math. Well, if I work $10, it'll be $5 off, you know, and then work your way up. If you're only getting, say, $300 of SSI, and if you make $665 that month, which is under SGA and under TWP, so it's not a bad amount, $300 should come off of your SSI. So if you're only getting $300 worth of SSI, that will be gone. Now, if you're on Medicare because of the DAC, you probably also have Medicaid, right? If the Medicaid is based on your SSI, you might lose it if you lose your SSI, right? So, and I'm just telling you things to think about. So, do you need your Medicaid? Medicare is better in my opinion. However, sometimes the Medicaid pays for the dual, right? You might have Medicaid paying your premiums, which is super because the premiums are, you know, I don't know, what are they guys now? 200. And your copays, if you know. So I hate to say it, but you got to be careful with that. Yeah, you do. If you don't need the SSI, then, not the SSI, the Medicaid, then it wouldn't maybe matter so much to lose the SSI, because you could make a ton more, you know. Let's say you're able to make $1,000 or $1,300 a month. It's under SGA. It's almost under TWP, but it's not. I think that's still closer to 1,200 or something. But you know, you could really keep that full 1,200, and plus you keep your DAC, and you're making more than if you're just on DAC and SSI. So you got to really run the different scenarios and what kind of money it's going to be, and if there's any repercussions of things you're going to lose. Russ goes on to say, married until 65 age, or someone has SSI, or what is my line? Okay, so we answered the first question. I was married until 65 age. What do you mean married till 65? You're going to get a divorce at 65? Not like the birthday present? Or someone who has, is this like a double question? I think it is. Sorry. I think we answered it, right, Russ? I know sometimes you don't see your thing, and so you're going to repost it. It's no problem. I should have realized that it was a dupe. George Graham's in the house from Punta Gorda, Florida. Hi, George. Good to see you again. Share, like, and subscribe, he says. That's true, guys. Por favor. How do people report SGA monthly? You don't have to report whether you breached a legal barrier. You just have to report. So tell them about your job and tell them how much you're making and how many hours you're doing and what you're doing. You can call them. If you call them, I would follow it up with a letter, and I would send it certified return receipt, or I would fax it so you have a fax confirm. Because you want to always kind of keep that proof in your little SSA file that you hopefully have, that yes, I did report that I was working. And you don't want to spend your SSI, remember, because you're going to have an overpayment if you do. And they will take it from your DAC, potentially. So, like, if you do work, and like I said, if let's say you work $400 or $465, and they are going to, you know, they're going to dock you $200, just don't spend $200 of that SSI you get. Right? Just put it aside, put it in a savings account, and earn interest. You know, don't spend it because you're going to have an overpayment. Now it gets a little tricky with the SSI, and I don't know how to answer this. Well, I can't keep accumulating that money because then I'll be over the resource limit for SSI. So I would tell them right away. Maybe send it back right away. And I know that's easier said than done. They do need a better system, and I think they're working on it. Because, like I said, I say, don't spend the money because you're going to have an overpayment, and now you're going to be like, oh my gosh, they're docking me. But you can't also have savings more than $2,000, so keep it all in mind. And I would just be very on the phone, you know, very document to them that you're working what you're making, and say, please. I mean, I would do both. I'd be on the phone, and I'd always have my confirming letters and say, please, can you reduce my SSI? I think I'm going to be making $465 for the foreseeable future, or whatever amount you're going to be. So can you tell me how much I should be docked, and can you start that right away? I don't want an overpayment. And then, of course, if you lose your job or you stop working, sometimes you might not be able to continue. You're going to want to call them and say, hey, so I stopped working, and I'm going to need this to, you know, my SSI to reflect. And then they'll fix it again. And then SSI is like that. It's going to be like that if you're working. But working is good. Sybil Chick is in the house. Hi, Siv. Hi, everyone. I have one doctor appointment Friday, and then the lovely back injections. My leg is burning so bad. Oh, my gosh. Got my SSDI ME appointment. You think you mean your CE, right? Consultative examination with a doctor, Sybil? Beginning of July. Okay. I'm so scared, anxious, new person. Don't be scared. We do have a video on what to consider, before your CE exams. It's under, I think the playlist is consultative examination. And there might be one separate about mental, or they're both together. I'm not sure, but we'll check them out. Sybil says, Hinge Health, you can do PT online. Is that going to produce PT records? That is a big thing I would like to know. Because if it's considered home exercise program and there's no one to watch you, like, are they going to be watching you through cameras? Are they going to be taking session notes? Are they going to be talking about what was hard for you? What the, so I'm not saying that's bad, civil. I just want, from the legal side, I want to know it's going to produce the evidence that is what I care about, for the case. The day you start dialysis, you qualify. Well, that's nice. And it's good for your health, but I'm just talking about if you expect that to be helpful to your case, these questions need to be answered. Virginia Gomez is in the house. She says, good morning. Hi, Virginia. What is order stipulation to remand? My case is going back to ALJ. I don't really understand your question. So I think what you're saying, I forget, was this at the federal district court, Virginia? I think we talked about this last week, right? So I suppose it could be what you're saying is when the SSA saw the federal district court case that you did rejecting the appeals council and the ALJ, and their bigger wiggers reviewed it and they said, we'll stipulate it should go back to the hearing because this was violated for another hearing. So it didn't have to go the full range of, oh, let's argue this. And, maybe it was even before, I can't imagine it was before briefs because they're due pretty early, but that's my thinking, right? Stipulation was by the SSA saying, yeah, we'll stipulate that it should go back. And boom, it's back. And now you get another hearing. Just make sure you improve your evidence in the meantime. Because there's no guarantee just because it goes back to the judge is good enough to flip his result. But the more you can give him a reason to, that's what you want to do. Does the label of, this is Baxter, by the way, Baxter again. Does the label of light unskilled by SSA, is that permanently in my file? Yes, it is. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't change. It's permanently in your file because that was a finding. But the whole goal, if that means you're not disabled, and depending on your vocational profile is whether that would mean you're disabled. For some people, it would be legally found to be disabling. You at your current vocational profile can change that by proving that, no, I actually can't do light work because I can't be on my feet 6 out of 8 hours, or I can't lift 20 pounds a third of the day, right? So yes, it's in there permanently, but it doesn't have to be the last word. And think about it. For every case that gets overturned on an appeal, whether it's recon appeal or ALJ, the RFC, I shouldn't say every, most RFCs were changed because there was more proof to show that it was indeed, there was less residual functional capacity to do things. The exception, when I said almost everyone, is if they can now win because they changed an age frame. Like here, what we're talking about, age category where light and unskilled suddenly is a winner. Didn't have to do anything. Still had to maintain the evidence, like still keep going, follow up with your doctors and stuff, but you don't have to, prove that you're even worse off than light and unskilled. All right. Pardon me, guys. I got these big arse shoulders. In this jacket. Okay, Marie says, where are you, Marie? I'm already on SSDI, but I continue on with treatment. And you know what? If someone needs treatment, that's great because now you have Medicare, right? It helps. And then if you're going to have a CDR, most people do. I would say almost everyone is susceptible to it. And you have to keep up with some sort of treatment or it's going to be rebuttably assumed that you improved. And therefore, there's a good chance you get ceased on CDR. Sybil says, I will check with my eye surgeon on Friday about the diagnosis virtual. I just wonder, like I said, I feel like I'm like, did I dream that? Or is that something true? Or am I mixing it up with that neurology thing that my husband had? And when I say virtual, We're not talking about virtual, like, oh, I'm in a hospital and they have a special camera that goes to the neurologist. That's what my husband had actually. But I actually said no. It was just like regular video. But I could see that being like, oh yeah, they do eye exams long distance because the machine that you're looking into actually transfers things to them. They could see it like it's right, like they're right there, like they're looking at the other end of it. So that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about if you're actually sitting at your own home with your own silly device, your phone or what I'm sitting in front of, you know. Our Willie says DBT, oh, dialectical behavior therapy, an intensive evidence-based psychotherapy designed to help people manage extreme emotions, reduce impulses, and improve relationships. Gotcha. I assume if it's extensive, it's probably a couple times a week, not once in a blue moon, right? Would that be fair to say or no? At least once a week, right? I mean, even basic therapy's got to be, you know. Heather's in the house. Hi, Heather. Good afternoon, Stephanie and Tasha. Yeah, she mellowing out? Yeah, she's taking a little nappy after a snap. Is it harmful to switch PCP during the appeals process? I don't think so. The only thing I would avoid is if getting the next one means a 6-month bump out or something long. I would stick with the PCP you have until you get that next appointment where it should be anyway, ideally. I found one accepting new patients that also offers counseling mental health for her primary care. Interesting. So does that mean your PCP is also a mental health professional, or is she just going to pretend to be? So what is that? Heather goes on to say to her patients, I've been unsuccessful finding a mental health provider that accepts my current insurance and accepting new patients. Have you looked across the country? Can you do that? I mean, I know licensing is state by state, but I'm just wondering if telehealth. I mean, did you call your own insurance company and find out all their mental health providers too? Instead of, you know, cold calling, so to speak. Try to do that. I know it's a nightmare. Joe L is in the house. Hi, Joe. I don't think we've seen you for a few weeks. Hello. Filed in March. Still on step 1. Step 1. And waiting initial application. Oh, to finish review stage. Ugh, such a pain. So it's hung up at the field office. Your field office is slow and incompetent. I have a few of those in my roster, unfortunately. So frustrating. I turned 60 at the end of July. Will SSA consider my age as 59 or 61 review starts? Whenever they're adjudicating it is the age they're going to consider you. So if they're adjudicating it in July, then 60, right? 60 years young. Our Willie says it's used in intensive outpatient psychotherapy. Yes, we're talking about frequency though. Like I said, when I see people that are going to mental health therapy, when they say they've got serious mental illness, that particularly if they're saying it stops me from working, and they're seeing a therapist or, you know, a mental health professional once a month, twice a month, that's generally not what one would expect for someone who is so demolished by their mental health problems. I mean, honestly, some would say we would expect them to seek inpatient, not even just intensive outpatient. But if it's going to be, some people won't go inpatient, and I understand, then that outpatient should be very robust. I mean, the kind of intensive outpatient that my clients have gotten, and that's been where they are in group like 5 days a week, sometimes 3 or 4 days a week. And it's like a 6-hour day. This isn't like you show up 45 minutes and you all say hi and my name is so-and-so and I drink too much. It's not like that. It's very supervised because these people really are troubled, right? And they go home and they're home for the weekend or whatever. And then this is like their full-time job, because that's how seriously impaired they are. It's about a little bit about optics, you know, and what other humans who are the adjudicators are going to see. If they see a therapist that says, oh my gosh, he's really on the, you know, this person's on the verge of, you know, so lucky he doesn't have to be in an institution right now. That's how paranoid he is, or how this is, or how that is. And they're only offering it twice a month. Every 2 weeks you go and you talk to somebody for an hour or whatever and have that intensive, the dialectical. I'm just saying, I don't know that that's going to present as one would hope. I wanted to say Tracy Hearsay, but it's Tracy Hearsay. Hi, Tracy. Nice to meet you. I don't think we've met, but your picture looks familiar. Maybe we have. I just don't remember the name, the screen name. It was his eyebrows. I forget which way it goes, but if they can move their eyebrows, oh, it differentiates bells versus strokes. Okay. It's funny because with bells, it's frozen. He was like half person on one side and half the other, which has nothing to do with the pain that comes, at least for him, and I think many others, because it's I forget, is it the 7th cranial nerve? I might have the wrong ear. He gets this pain. This is like 1.5 years out now, almost 2 years. That I think he always has a low level, and he's had headaches his whole life though. So I think he's very good at pretend, you know, just moving on, and he's got a good job and everything. But when it gets intense, God, it just breaks my heart, because he'll describe it. It goes like around the side of the skull, through or over the ear, I think. And then it'll go into his face. And no, all the neurologists are like, nothing we can do about it because that's the way it is. Well, B12 shots help him. They don't cure it, but they make a big difference. And it turned out he was like, had 0 B12 in his system in some blood tests early on. So it makes me wonder, you know, I'm one of those, I know medicine doesn't care to discuss it because they can't make a lot of money off it. But does a low B12 chronically, perhaps? Who knows? It's not like he's ever been tested, because they don't test us for that. I don't know why they don't test. Apparently, it's a fact that as we age, we have less. So I don't know why. They'll test me for cancers that don't run in my family, and when I have no symptoms, but they're not going to test me for something that's chronically a problem for people. I don't get it. But anyway, so now he gets B12 shots, and we don't even do them through insurance. We have this hydration hub, which is it's probably a franchise, maybe not. I don't know. It's run by a bunch of nurses. It's in my town. It's not that old. It's been there a couple of years, probably a few years. Super nice people. You just set up your appointments and you go, and B12 might be like $25. It's like one of the cheaper ones. And you just get a quick shot, and you do that. You can do it every week. We try to hedge them, but I think with insurance, it was like 30 or 25. So why not just skip the insurance and the hassle of all that? And since you're paying out of pocket that amount anyway, just go directly to them. So super nice. And they have a ton of other stuff, but then the price, you know, starts changing. There's some really expensive things that, you know, you got the money, one could consider. Dean of Dividends says, oh, he's talking to R. Willie. I don't want to interrupt. Oh, wait, he's talking about the diagnosis, PE. Sorry. Yeah, and I think, R. Willie, I didn't give you enough credit when you were explaining that. Prolonged exposure, yeah, through complex traumas. Yeah, so it all sounds like it's all different variations almost of a PTSD, but worse, maybe? So True Hero says, true hero under God. That's sweet. So by me showing documents showing that I'm behind on mortgage, not behind, no. I said eviction or foreclosure. However, you can present what you have and see what they say. You definitely want to present the evidence. If you haven't received a notice yet, they might not do anything with it. And the reason I think is because there are times when people are behind in their mortgage 3 years. and the mortgage company has not opted to start the foreclosure process. And the reason why I think that that might happen is because the house is always better lived in than left abandoned. Houses abandoned, if you guys noticed, they die. They like start to die. It's so weird. You could see it like I could go by a house that's been 1 year, sorry, 1 year since there were inhabitants, and you can tell. And I'm not talking, if the lawn's been cut, I'm not talking about the lawn. I'm talking about the house. If the house has not been touched, it's like, it's weird. Suddenly the gutter's hanging or the shingles this, and it's just weird. So I think they know that even if the guy's not paying, that house is, that real estate is going to survive better with him in it. So now, why don't they just foreclose and get it on the market right away? I don't know. But this was definitely a big issue. And in fact, it was probably advised by many people, for people who are having money problems. They're like, just don't pay your mortgage then, since you're going to lose the house anyway. You know, you need your car, or you need that medicine, or hold that money and save it to go buy something else, or, you know, or rent something, you know. But like, so people would be like holding on to their mortgage money for like 3 years. That's a lot of money to save, isn't it? Just if you have it when they sue you for it, you might be barred from spending it. So you might have to, I don't know, talk to like a bankruptcy lawyer or something, or a debt specialist. But I don't know, it was just interesting because people would be like, I haven't paid in 2 years, they haven't done anything yet. And so they'd be like pocketing that money and saving it because they know the chips are going to fall. So maybe they weren't saving their whole mortgage because they didn't have it all, but they're like, if I have a $1,200 mortgage and I only have 1,000, you know, the mortgage company say, send 1,000. And they're like, but they're still going to like boot me. So I'm just going to keep the whole darn thing, see where it goes. I mean, there's different, I'm sure there's different reasonable minds on what to do. And every case is probably different. Official Mid Williams. Hi, Official. Nice to meet you. I don't think we've met. Let's see. Here's Tashi. Russ says, if I get DAC benefits $1,350, you get SSI too, DAC? I mean, Russ, or do you just get Medicaid too? If I get DAC benefits $1,350, what is limited earning monthly income? I told you. That's the Medicaid limits are going to be specific to your state. That's not federal Social Security. I can't answer your questions. Every state is different. So there's like 50 states, right? And I'm not even sure if it differs by county within states. I don't think so. But there's 50 states that define, and they're all different, whether someone, you know, at X amount of income can get Medicaid. So I can't tell you that. Absolutely not. I wish I could, but I'm not going to, I don't take the time to study that because I don't practice it. It would be very wasteful of my time in terms of my clients and stuff and what I try to do. Yeah. So I can only tell you how it works for SSI, which I think I already explained about. Christina is in the house. Hi, Christina. Good to see you. Hello from California. Sybil Chick says, images come on CD when I request them from our hospital here. Yeah, so the SSA is not interested in your images. They want the interpretive report from the radiologist who interpreted them. Because the adjudicators are not radiologists, and neither is a judge if you end up going to a judge. So make sure you have those. They're presumably in the records. They don't really care about the images. Can't use them. Official says, I'm on SSDI for a psychological disability, and I do 1099 work where deductions reduce my net. You mean business, right? Like self-employed business expenses are the deductions you're referring to, because that's what reduces your net for Social Security purposes, right? The bottom of your Schedule C is the net, right? After you subtract all those expenses. How does Social Security factor that into my SGA, and when should I expect a review? Can't tell you when to expect a review. That would be your diary date, and you'd have to find that out from the SSA as particular to you and your case. However, with regard to your 1099 earnings, it's going to be your net earnings from self-employment, which is generally the bottom of your Schedule C, that when you file your taxes. That is the number. So that's the number you want to legitimately keep under SGA. Ideally, you keep it under TWP, if that's possible. However, they also are going to be looking at your hours and your duties and, you know, what all you're doing. That's because when we're self-employed, sometimes we could be working 40 hours, but we're only showing, you know, $1,500 a month, which is under SGA. So, you know what I'm saying? Like the IRS gives us a lot of write-offs. So, you know, potentially business expenses that are legitimate. Some people try to grab more. I wouldn't do that. But also, you definitely want to make sure your hours. I would, you know, if you could keep your hours under 10 hours a week is ideal. That's not really a carved in stone, you know, necessity. But I know if you hit 80, it's going to be considered a trial work period month, regardless of your income. And 80 is like half time. So that's pretty up there. Like when I see people working part-time at 25 hours a week, I know an adjudicator is probably like, you're working more than half time. So while I like why people try to keep it under 15, some people do 20. You know, it's all going to depend also on your duties. Are you doing anything official that contradicts what you said you couldn't do? You give a psychological disability. Let's say you had a fear of talking in public as part of that much bigger thing. And then your job is, I don't know, speaking to a big mass of people. You know what I mean? Like it's part-time. Yeah, but you're doing exactly what you say you can't do. So I'm assuming that's not the case, but just throwing it out there. Always make sure you know what you're doing is not inconsistent with your claim. And the irony, and that's just for optic reasons, because it still doesn't mean you could do it full time. But how much you want them digging and questioning is I think, what we try to avoid, because it's stressful to be fearful of a CDR. And I don't think most people need to be. But when it comes to working, just be careful. And I think it's great that you're working, by the way. I love it. Adam says, hi, Adam. Adam's a fave. Adam's in the house. Hope you're all doing well. Yes, I hope everyone's doing well, too. Oh, after 65, get married. Not if you're going to be on SSI, Russ. If you're going to stay on SSI. Did you know, Russ? I don't know if this would affect you. Probably no. What I was going to say won't apply to you. If you're getting SSI and you get married, I think it doesn't matter that you're 65. Okay. I'm going to double check that, though. I've never heard that does, but you know, 65 does come with some weird things. But I do not believe so, because SSI is needs-based. And if you have I mean, you can get married, but if your spouse has income that puts you, because some of it's deemed to you, over that limit, then you're done for. And what you need to look up is, since you're DAC has limitations on marriage. So you need to think long and hard about that. All right. Will you be getting your own retirement? I don't know how old you are now. If you probably haven't hit 62, or if you did, you didn't have any Social Security of your own, possibly, or did you? Because at 62, if you're on SSI, you largely have to take your early retirement. So, but you know, at least you get off the SSI, and then you can hopefully get married. I'm curious, are you thinking, Roz, that there is an exception to the DAC rule about getting married to a non-disabled person because you turned 65? I mean, I put that on my list to look that up too. I never heard of it, but you know, these things don't come up very often. Let me still get a note. I have a lot of notes in here that I've never followed up on. No offense. It's just, there's a long list. And it's so very busy here. Mental exam. Oh, ME, mental exam. Yeah. Yeah, we do have. Go ahead, go and check those out. It's a playlist. Consultative examinations. And there might be one about mental health. That might be separate playlist, but I know it's also probably in the consultative exams, generally speaking. Okay. The bigger one. Russ says, if there is no SSI only, but only SSA, SSA is not a benefit. It's an administration, Social Security Administration. So that doesn't really make sense. Because of DAC benefits. Okay. I think what you mean is Social Security, not administration, Social Security benefits, which happen to be DAC, which is, yes, a Social Security benefit earned by your mama or your papa, usually. Getting married after 65 or someone who gets SSDI or DAC, I may not lose my DAC. Marrying an SSI individual. Yeah, you know what? I think it's a disabled individual collecting, but I can't swear by it. So when you're talking about an SSI individual, that's possible. I just can't swear by it. I don't know that age 65 has anything to do with it. If you do, let me know. That's pretty cool. I'd like to flesh that out a little bit more. That the DAC restriction, if you think it ends at 65. I don't know that it does. But again, we don't represent people at 65. Not on DAC anyway. Or never have, I should say. KJ's in the house. I was contacted by SSA about DAC. By the way, guys, we're an hour and 15 in. I was contacted by SSA about DAC. I don't know my father's Social Security number. Don't think he'd tell me. Will they have his number? Thanks. They should be able to figure this out. I do believe. Because it's true, a lot of people are paranoid to share it even to loved ones. So, did you tell him you didn't have your father's? I don't know my father's Social Security number, and he's paranoid and will give it to me, or whatever, you know. I think I even see on like divorced people when they file, it'll say, "Did you have a spouse you were married to for 10 years?" Yes. And you give the name and the information. The reason why they ask that is because you might be able to get they want to check to see if you can get a bigger benefit should you win than on your own record. So it's to your benefit. And they'll say, do you know his Social Security number? And there's a spot that says, I don't know it. So they expect people not to necessarily know their ex's Social Security number. I would imagine they would expect that with the child, you know, an adult child or somebody. I don't know why your father wouldn't give it to you. Why doesn't he get to sit on the phone with them and give it to them? Sorry. But if you give him his name and his address, I see no reason why they can't figure it out. None at all. You know, and you're going to have to show, presumably, if it hasn't been done already, your birth certificate connecting you to him. You know, he's listed on your birth certificate as your parent. Or if you were adopted, there's an adoption order. So I don't think this is going to be a problem. They ask because it's easier if they can get it from your lip. They can get it. Baxter says, I have had memory cognitive decline since 2016. Neurologist 2016 notes amnesia, short-term memory 2023. SSA psychologist notes difficulty, wrote tasks, adaptability 2026, neuropsych memory problems. I'm sorry you're going through all that. Tracy here's you says 7th cranial. Yeah, I thought it was 7th. There's a different disorder with a 12th cranial. Is that on the other side of the head? She said, yes, same thing happened to my husband. I'm a new subscriber. Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Tracy. But have followed you for a while. I'm in reconsideration in Tennessee. Yeah, that Bell's palsy. I didn't know anything. I'd heard of it. It seemed innocuous. You know, that's what everybody thinks until they see someone that gets it or they get it themselves. It was pretty crazy. I was so relieved Thank God it wasn't like a disabling stroke. Thank goodness. But I will say, if you were a truck driver, delivery person, or across the road, long distance one, you wouldn't be able to do this job. You would literally not be able to do your job. Hands down. Now, could there be varying degrees of bells? I'm sure. Did you guys lose me? That was me. I saw a piece of dust on my computer. I went like this, and boom, I got myself totally out of this studio. I am so sorry. Or maybe you didn't. Let me know. I'm curious because it made me click to enter the studio again. Dimple's back. Hi, Dimple. It's been a while since you said that, but Tracy says, they didn't test his B12. Good tip. Yeah, check that out. Does he still have symptoms like pain, maybe intermittently? I don't know how long ago your husband got it. True Hero, you are so welcome. So Russ is saying no SSI, just DAC. Oh, so I think is your question about, was it about the working on the DAC? SGTWB. No SSI makes it much easier, Russ. So much easier. And the marriage, I don't know about the age 65. I'm really curious. Because I'd like to think, they even let widows get married at 60 or after, remarried, without losing the higher benefit they would have gotten, that they were getting from their deceased spouse. Normally when you get married, you become the dependent, the codependent of your spouse. It goes both ways. So if a widow on widow benefits or not gets remarried before 60, she's no longer a dependent of the deceased person because she put her dependency on somebody else, so she doesn't get those benefits. But if she marries after 60, then that's different. Because and I'm so glad, because can you imagine, it's hard enough when you're 60. Can you imagine you can't get married, you can't do this, you can't do that. And you could stay on the other one. So you got it for your dad. This is Russ. Russ says dad gets double. Okay, so you're at 50%. Okay. Yeah, so he's the number holder under which you have your dad. Stuck says, can I get disability because I'm an addict? If you're disabled, a lot of addicts out there. Are you kidding me, Stuck? I used to be addicted to cigarettes. But there's plenty of addicts who are able to work. So are you disabled from working, and can you medically prove it? And are you not making yourself unable to work if you're still using whatever you're using, whatever your choice of self-medication is? And does the fact that you still use make you fully disabled? Whereas if you stopped, you would no longer be disabled. You follow? So like, if you can't work because you're always trashed, but on the days you're not trashed, you can do basic stuff, it's probably going to be a material factor. So take that for what it is. All right. All right, Ross, I think we hit that on the head before. Russ is 43. I'd be careful. You know, don't screw around with your DAC. You're young. ENS is in the house. Hello from Texas. Hello. Mikey's in the house. Hi, Mikey. Have we met? Just received a non-medical review notice. Praying for the best. I'll pray with you there, Mikey. I have an elementary child being tested for a learning disability. If he's found to have one, do I file a separate disability app? Well, that depends. Is he disabled or just have a learning disability? I mean, a lot of people with learning disabilities are not so impaired that they can't have a normal childhood. So that doesn't really mean anything to me that he's got a learning disability. Half the world has a learning disability. I have a learning disability at this point. You know what I'm saying? But I really hope you get a fully favorable there, pal. Your elementary child, if he is disabled by this, if it's that severe, which is probably going to be more than a learning disability, and I hope he's not. Without you winning, if you guys are poor enough, you could get SSI. And if you're not poor enough, then yeah, it would be a child's benefit as a dependent under you once you prevail. So if you prevail, here's just a tip for the future, Mikey. If you prevail and you get your benefits and therefore you get the extra, your child gets the auxiliary benefit for you to use for his, his caring for him, his needs. But you're not sure. And by the way, he won't be able to get, SSI, and he won't be able to get DAC because he's too young. You got to be 18. If you think it might be something where he will need DAC, so right now he'd be getting it as a non-disabled because there's no fight, right? When he turns 18 or gets out of high school between 18 and 19, he's going to lose that dependent benefit he's gotten under your record. But if you think he's actually, and I mean, if you really think he's actually disabled and would never be able to work any job full time, even a simple third grade job, now keep all of his medical records. Every year, order everything for the year and keep it. I would keep a couple copies. I'd keep I'd keep maybe a paper version. Because, and I say this to anyone who thinks, God, this could be a problem later. Like, I don't know where this is going, if it's going to get worse. Or because, they don't fully diagnose some things. They're just not that good when the kid is young. Then you keep that all together, because then one day when he's over 18, he can again file for SSI because your money doesn't count now. And he's not going to have the auxiliary benefits from you. So now he's poor enough, and if he's disabled, he can get SSI at 18. And by doing that, you could also be then, if he's proven to be disabled at 18, 19, 20, 21, up till 22, but not including 22. When you, well, no, yeah, he would get DAC then because you would be on it, right? Yeah. If you didn't prevail, still keep his medical records, because one day, if you think he's going to be a disabled adult, I mean, I hope to goodness it's not. I hope it's just a learning disability. And most people just learn it another way and they figure, it works out fine. But it's a workaround, But you're going to want to keep that just in case, because later on, it could be at 40 years old, you can become eligible for DAC. Let's say you never get your disability but then you do much later. And he's now 40. I don't know, whatever, or 25 or 30. You're going to wish you had all these records because you still have to prove for him to do that he became disabled before the age of 22. So keep all those childhood records. Keep all those 18 to 23-year-old records. Just do it. LC says, number 1, is monthly payment after award of SSDI the same after you are 67 years old? Or does it change? No, it's the same. Your SSDI converts at 67 or whatever your full retirement age is in name only to retirement. So the amount is not going to go woo or woo. It's not going to do anything. Number 2, when CDR is due, does SSA send only the 455 If you're very lucky, it'll only be the 455. And if health not improved and no work done, is it enough for SSA approval? If you get the 455, they generally think that you probably haven't improved. But they want to double check because statistically it's more possible than for a medical improvement not expected person. So if health is not improved and you've been still going to treatment, visits, and you haven't done any work, then it is likely going to be fine, the CDR. Yes. If you get a 454, the longer form, I can't really say the same about that. It's a little more of an inquiry. She's back. Oh, so I did black out, right? Yeah, that was totally me and my clumsy fingers. And just stupid. Like I see a dust, so I have to put my hand on it. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know how that ended up being took me to the studio, but well, it was me. No, it wasn't you. Yeah, Tracy, lost you. Hello. Danny's in the house. SOJ, I still don't get why the lady would not give me some kind of document saying she witnessed me come into the appointment a day early. Why would that be a big deal when it was so simple? Why? Because they're not that nice. I guess also the fact that you asked for it means you have an underlying motive, right? So, why would someone say, oh, I came here yesterday by accident? Can you give a note saying I came here? Does she even know you came there yesterday? Did she see you? I think that's maybe when you asked her for it. But if if the goal is to prove that you have poor memory so that it'll help convince the judge or something that you have poor memory, they don't want to be used and played like that. And they don't know if you have poor memory, if that's not what she treats you for. Right? So they don't really want to get involved in, because she can't say he accidentally came here a day early. She doesn't know. She can't read your mind. So if they don't know you that well or trust you that well, I could see them saying that's not part of our medical duties. We're not sending letters to say that we saw you walking out in the park in your underwear or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's not part of their job. So that's why I say don't make it a big deal. That they don't do it. She didn't do that. I think it's not to be. I think I wouldn't expect it from anyone, to be honest with you, because they can't. I mean, you could just play that. You could be like, I'm going to go there and pretend I'm confused. So you can't really blame them for being like, whatever, we're not giving it to you. KJ says they cut you off, said something you shouldn't. No, I literally did. I was swiping my keyboard. My one that's attached to my laptop, not I have two. Tracy hears you, says his bells was very mild, thank God, no pain. Oh, wow. See, yeah, it does vary. I'm a former audiologist. Ooh, so this is right up your alley, right? Worried about your husband's fifth cranial nerve. Which one's that, Tracy? What's the fifth? Oh, my goodness. What? What's with the fifth? Now I'm going to have to go do research that I wasn't planning on. I don't have time for this. Just kidding, Tracy. I appreciate it. Laverl Dickerson. Hi, Laverl. Or is it? Yeah, okay. I'm going to leave it at that. Are they still reviewing my medical if I had a past relevant work interview, but portal still says step 3? Yeah. Okay. So it should actually bump to step 4. This is usually a good sign, by the way. If they already had your medical, they've done a lot on the medical, and it's kind of late in the day, and you already sent your work history a long time ago, and they want to know more about that job. I just had this. In fact, I just had on my case that within 2 weeks we went after. I knew it was a good sign. It is very important that you know the questions they're asking, and whatever the reality is of your job, you know how you can't tell every detail about your job. So some people pick the things that are not going to be helpful to the answer in the legal sense because they don't know. But it's truthful, but they just don't know. You know, if there's a million details about your job and you got 2 sentences to answer the lady, what's the chance of you picking out the parts that would positively, the real parts that would make that answer be the one that fits into the puzzle to make you disabled legally? It is nitpicky. So, you know, I had out the blue, had to have a 1 hour, this is where, you know, schedules get crazy, but a 1 hour conversation, it might even been more than an hour, with my client to make sure, because I don't let her talk to him. I said, I'll get you that information. And I even put it on paper and let my person, I put his answers down. As I've said, I ask the questions and I give them suggestions of the, so when she says this, remember, if you do this, and that would be contrary to this. Did you do this? Oh, yes, I did do that. Okay, so good. So we, and I have them initial. So it's his answers. You know, I prepare the letter, of course, you know, and then we prepare it with a fully favorable onset on initial. But that's where it drives me crazy when work history reports go out from the client. Doesn't happen with us, but for, you know, some law firms won't help you with them. They just want you to do it blindly on your own, and those things matter. The work history report, particularly if you're over 50, matters immensely. It totally affects step 4 in the grid, so it's really important. ENS, I was found fully favorable on May 15th, and now my payment is at the payment center in Baltimore. I was found fully favorable. Yay! Thank you for all the help. Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you for sharing that. I love the good news. Fully favorable on May 15th. It's been a few weeks. Good for you. Makes for a better summer, wouldn't you say? That money should be flowing soon. Mikey, you are very welcome. I was gone for 10 minutes, Russ, right? I mean, 10 seconds, yeah. Oh, yeah, because I was hustling. I'm like, oh, shoot. I just saw black. Heather says, I apologize if you get multiple incomplete evaluation forms from me. Oh, my gosh, did you send some? For some reason, when I go to a different screen to get information, it backs me up and I have to start over. I don't know what you're talking about. Did you send something? Was this in the past, maybe? In the past. Yeah, I think I did, right? When I go to a different screen, there's only one. I don't know if that's something on your side. It's only one page, one screen. So I don't know. Head. I'm sorry. Yeah, and it says, was found fully favorable. Oh, that's a repeat. Okay. Dimple congratulates. Heather says, my denial said they can't prove that I can do my past work. But this is called an expedited. They expedited through step 4, but I can adapt to new work. Very common, particularly if you're under 50, right, Heather? I don't remember what I put for my past work history requirements or whatever it is they ask. So as you can see, they can kind of, I forget when this rule came about. I think it was under Obama, and I agree with it, because if they're going to deny you on step 5, they don't really have to take all that legwork of doing step 4. Attention to your prior work. Because yes or no doesn't matter. The result doesn't matter because they have to go to step 5. And if you can do any other job in the 12,000 jobs in the national or regional economy, you are not disabled. So it is not uncommon for them to, I think they call it expedited. Step 4, maybe. The girl says, so you think it's a good sign, just a waiting game? I'm 59 years old. All right, let me just go back up. I want to make sure I missed it. I tend to think so, but obviously I can't speak to your case. I just can say with my experience on my cases, when they call me about someone in their 50s, mind you, or older, and it's about clarifying. Something tells me, Laverne, did you have skilled prior work? It wasn't an unskilled job in that last 5 years that are counted. They're trying to find out if you had skills that would be transferable to a less arduous job that you could otherwise do, even though you can't do your old job for some reason. Could be you need your pinky finger and you don't have it. But can he just take those skills that are transferable to a light job or a sedentary job? Because you had to prove you couldn't do a medium job, right? But you could easily do lighter sedentary. And they want to know if those skills are transferable. And so that's what they ask usually about. Did you supervise? Did you write reports? Things that can be done at a desk job and some other, job. So it usually works out. Okay. Depending on how you answer those questions, of course. If you give them a lot of transferable skills, that's why, the skills are transferable or they're not transferable. And usually skills are transferable, but not always skill jobs. Also, can you personally transfer them? Like, do you not have any cognitive things that would say, yeah, I used to do that 3 years ago, but since then my anxiety makes me like scatterbrained. And I can't really remember yesterday, much less that. And if you have medical records to that effect that you've been treating, consistent, not just, snapshot. I went to a doctor once and told him I have, distractibility, anxiety. If you treat with mental health therapy and there's ongoing, yeah, he's had this for quite a while. And because remember, there's a 12-month duration. So if you don't have 12-month duration, you could be definitely screwed. So I hope it works out for you. I really do. If it doesn't, email me. Congratulations, ENS. Yeah, that's awesome. Heather says, here's the work history I had. I haven't completed it yet. I'm still working on it. It's when I switched my screen on. Oh, the evaluation on my phone. Yeah, phones. I don't know how you guys work from the phone. I really don't. Go to my medical stuff. User error on my end, not the website. I'm such not a phone person. I don't like having to look at a little tiny screen. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, I have big screens. I have 1, 2, 3. Diana says, what are the steps 1 through 5 that you're talking about, Stephanie? Okay, Diana, let me tell you. That would be the sequential evaluation process. SEP. I call it the SEP. I don't know if anybody else does. And it's 1 is about, is she working SGA currently? Because remember how to even file, you can't be working SGA. 2 is, does she have medically determinable impairments, diagnoses, and is at least one of them severe? If no, if question number 1 is yes, she's working SGA, you're denied. If it's no, you go to question number 2. Question number 2, does she have medically determinable impairments? Yes. Next question, step number 2, are they severe? Is at least one severe? Yes. Then you get to go further. To 3. Do any of those severe medically determinable impairments meet a listing? Yes or no? If it meets a listing, game over. Boom, you're disabled. If it doesn't meet a listing, which is probably most people, so never hang your hat on a listing, guys. Always work up your residual functional capacity and all that medical evidence of a durational, ongoing nature for this big battle. So if you don't meet a listing, then they have to ask, well, then what is her residual functional capacity? Since she doesn't meet a listing, what can she do despite that severe medically determinable impairment or impairments? And that's where they have an RFC developed. And that's usually done by the medical expert at the SSA who gets your whole medical file, because they can't really make that decision. So they have all the medical evidence that they're going to use. That's everything that you've told them, all the doctors you've been seeing and have seen. and any consultative exam. And that whole file goes to the expert, and he looks at it and he says, okay, so based on this, I see she has a residual functional capacity for sedentary only. She can't do heavy, she can't do medium, and she can't do light because she has no feet. You know, she can't walk 6 to 8 hours, whatever the case may be. And then are there any other restrictions to capacities? Like, let's say you have an arm that doesn't work and you can't even lift your arm. There would be that would be a limitation to reaching, lifting, all these other things. So they get all that together. But the first part of that RFC, very important, is the exertional, which is the limited to sedentary or limited to light, limited to medium, or limited to heavy. I think there might even be very heavy, or there's no limitation to physical. If there's no limitation to physical, guys, you can't even make an attempt to use the grids, by the way. So that's, I call that 3.5. After you don't meet a listing, 3.5, because it comes before 4. And 4 is, okay, given that RFC that she can only do sedentary, and she has no mental, limitations, so she can do high skilled work. What, or at least the high skilled work she already has in her brain, because she just did it. Can she do her prior job? Yes or no? So they compare the vocational requirements of your prior job with that RFC and decide, yeah, she can still do it. If you can still do it, you lose at step 4. That would be step 4 we're talking about. If they say, she can't do that prior job because that prior job was light, not sedentary, and we limited her to light. Okay, so you pass step 4. Now you go to step 5. All right, she's limited to sedentary, but she has no mental health problems. So she can transfer those brainiac skills. Are there any sedentary jobs that can use the skills she has? And if the answer is yes, the ones that you can transfer, then you lose at step 5. I feel like most people lose at step 5. If the answer is no, she can't do any other jobs in the economy. And that's a very big, broad question, right? And there's 12,000 jobs. Yes or no is the answer, right? So if the answer is no, she can't do any of those jobs, then you win. So that's step 1 through 5. Sequential evaluation process. I have a playlist on that if you need. Tracy says, 5th cranial nerve is a trigeminal. Is that on a particular side of the face? I have had multiple trigeminal neuralgia patients, and I feel for them. And rarely, it's never ever been the only impairment they have. They've had other serious impairments. So I don't know if there's a connection there. Maybe it's migraines. I don't know, but not fatal, but very painful. Yeah, eating. Oh my gosh, it's heartbreaking because they do not. I don't understand why they can't do more about it. They can't find out more about it. I guess it's because it's not fatal, but the quality of life, what it does to somebody. They're worried about, research so people can get bigger boobs or change their private parts, but they don't put the money towards this stuff. I just don't get it. Sorry. He may have had bells, but what the nerve can cross, what the nerves can cross stop. Oh, I hope to God now. Like I said, this one alone, I'm sorry, it's this one. Wait. No, when he's looking at me, it's on that. See, I'm backwards with you guys. So it's on his left. His left is his bad side. So I think that's right. So they're not like symmetrical. It's not like the 12th cranial goes around or the 5th, right? Is it just one side? I don't know. Has to do with fat pads, myelin sheath. It really makes people with pain. It really hurts my heart. Tracy says, hope they have considered polyneuralgia. Again, not fatal, but very much affects quality of life. God bless y'all. I'm very empathetic to pain. Me too, Tracy, because I know how it feels when I have bad pain, which isn't often. I have to always revert back to my gallbladder explosion out of the blue. And that's severe pain. And then being in a hospital 2 weeks later, out of state, with severe pain, and whatever they were giving me in my IV was not it was touching it, but not enough. In fact, so bad that after at least 24 hours of them not, they kept forgetting to come in and change it and all this stupid shit. I was clinging to my blankets the whole time for over 24 hours in my own private hospital room. And I think I wasn't breathing very deeply because it would hurt. And when they finally gave me the stuff that worked, and the surgeon apologizes, like, oh yeah, sorry about that. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I think I told the nurse when she goes, hi, this was the ditzy one that was really kind of stupid. The other ones were pretty good, but she was in charge of me the whole night. How you feeling? I go, I feel better if I put, I think I told her like hot pokers in my eyeballs or hot pins or something like that. And I'm not that kind of person that says that stuff, but that's how bad it was. I might have even said that in front of my husband. I'm not sure, because I made him not come back. He did eventually anyway. He didn't listen to me, but I was like, there's no reason for you to be here because I'm just rolling around in misery. I'm writhing. I'm tensed up. I couldn't breathe when it all got resolved. Like when I got the right pain med, it was like 24 hours later. My chest was so constricted because I just been like this, like, you know how you get like it's whatever it is, guarding or whatever. And I had to. It took me I would say a few hours to like expand and I have pretty big lungs. Expand my lungs. It was I had to do it gently because it was a little painful, and my hands were so cramped up that took a while too. It was insane. Horizon, because that kind of pain I had goes to your back, and that was the part that everything was just like, it was so bad. So I make myself think of that. I do remember contractions when I was pregnant and stuff many years ago, but it's not the same. I mean, that's bad, but it's going to be over and you're just waiting to have your baby and you're so excited. It's just so different than not knowing if your pain's ever going to go away. Heather says, it's taken my case 22 months to get first denial and recon. Oh, yeah. So you had long initial and a long recon. They seem to be taking forever for everybody. Yeah, different offices. It's a state-run thing, the offices and their staffing. And I think some states are just, they're spending money in places other than this, and so they're very short on adjudicators. You might want to look at what your state is spending its money on. That's not going to this. Might tell you who to vote for, right? Or who not to vote for. Thanks for your help. You're very welcome, girl. Lori B's in the house. Hi, Stephanie. I'm from very hot Arizona. Oh my gosh, I bet you are. I hope you're doing well. I am. Nice to see you. I don't think we've met, have we, Lori? But I hope you stay cool, like in the air conditioning. Diana says, did the person reviewing your case file ever call you from? Yes, for sure. And we have it in our letters, like, don't call the client, call us. He's not allowed to talk to you. And they ignore me sometimes, which is probably a violation of the law, but nobody does anything about it. I give them a little rash. But if you don't have an attorney, you are the person they're going to call. So, for sure. So hopefully you just know the way to accurately answer the question. There's many ways, as I say, there's many ways to skin the cat. There's many ways to give accurate information. Because remember I was saying there's like a million facts about you. And about that would be relevant to the question they're asking. And do you know which ones will be affecting the law they're going to apply to you? Like if you don't know what the relevancy of that question is, you're just basically like pitting a tail on a donkey when you're giving them the answer. It's all those are all truths, but you're not giving them the one that's going to favorably affect your case. And that's what concerns me about that. And it's usually they're asking about work, or sometimes they'll say, have you seen a mental health? I saw you had anxiety in your application, but I don't see any kind of mental health provider. And they want to know whether they need to work that up, because remember, you don't have to be severely institutionalized to win your case if you have a certain vocational profile, but you might need to just have enough reduced concentration, maybe to chronic pain, or maybe to anxiety, but it's got to be documented and on a continuous basis for 12 months, so that can be considered a disabling side effect that lasted long enough to make your entire case disabling. Because you can't transfer those skills like I was talking about with the step 5 if you're trying to meet a grid. Lori B says, I'm over 60 years young, Lori. That's what I like to say because I'm right behind you. Very sedentary job. Me too. Extreme back pain, not me. From grade 2 spondylolisthesis, PTSD, anxiety. Would grid rules help in this instance? Absolutely. You've got the physical. That's the back pain. And I will say, spondylolisthesis is not the same as spondylosis. So if you guys see spondylosis in your chart, yes, it's an impairment. However, people who can work have spondylosis. So it's in and of itself, it's not going to be necessarily considered to wipe out the physical jobs you need to wipe out. And grade 2 or 3, so it's not even grade 1. PTSD, I'm sure, and anxiety, I'm sure affects your concentration, Lori. You had a sedentary job. I'm suspecting it was probably skilled of some kind. It wasn't like an unskilled 3rd grade job. I do hope you have representation so you can make sure this goes right. Yeah, because I think you could have a good case as long as that, you know, the evidence needle threads, which includes like if someone calls you like they were asking about before. I think Diana asked that, you know, hit the wrong facts when you try to answer a question, given how many facts pertain. Okay, fibromyalgia, IBS. Those are the weaker parts of your case, fibromyalgia in particular. IBS, if you can document if it's severe, like going to the bathroom, it's usually the off-task time that's going to be the major thing. If you're going to the bathroom every 40 minutes and you're in there for a good 15, obviously that would interfere with a full-time job. It's called off-task, you would think. And obviously thorough GI, you know, following with GI, probably on medications. If you're not, then it's not severe enough to be really a big deal. And if it is severe, where you know that you are going to the bathroom a lot, it would be then, and it doesn't have to be as much, by the way, as 15 minutes or 45 minutes. That was just an example that would be blatantly clear that you would not be able to perform any full-time job adequately because you're just half the day, not half the day, but third day you're in the potty. A journal, and I mean like a little tiny notebook, or I always say Dollar Tree calendar, where it's only got your IBS stuff in it. So each day, you know, a dot for you went, or even put a dot for, maybe have a PM side, an AM side, and a PM side for each day. AM, 4 dots. You went 4 times that morning, and you spent 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 19 minutes, 7 minutes. And that's how much time you would have been off task that morning, you know, and then the same the afternoon. And it just helps. It's not medical evidence per se, although I would send it to your GI doctor for sure, you know, every few months. But when you testify as to how often it is, and you've already had it in the file for the judge, your calendar going back 2 years, you send it to him 18 months ago, or, you know, whatever. You send it to the SSA 18 months ago. It's gonna feel credible, more credible, because this is a historical thing you shared. It's not like you're on the stand now just attesting to it. Well, not only does she attest that it's very frequent, there's the calendar from 2 years ago, you know. The girl says, one more question. How long after the interview do you get a decision? I'm in Alabama. What interview? What interview? I don't know what interview you're talking about. Lori says, I see pain management neurologist for migraines. Migraines too. Liver specialist for NASH. Yeah. Lori, I think my guess is you're in a good place. I mean, you have, I obviously can't see for sure, but assuming they've documented well and everything's laid out, and you don't have transferable skills, or if you do, you have the evidence that shows you can't transfer them, I think you sound like you have a decent case. Heather says, oh, she's talking to Diana. Let me pass on. Lloyd says, no, we haven't. We haven't what? Thank you. Oh, Diana's talking. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to see who I can gloss over because we're having a private conversation. We're at 2 hours, guys, so we'll be getting out of here shortly. Russ says, switching to Dad's DAC. Oh, so you're just switching to DAC now. I think 1350 would disqualify from SSI. Yes, it would. For sure. That's not even a question. And what do you think? Is it smart to stay on Medicaid plus extra help? My RXs are too expensive. If you can, if your RXs are not covered well by any Medicare plan, you know, like, or prescription plan with the Medicare, if you can stay on the Medicaid, because otherwise a lot of your 1350 is going to be going to your prescriptions, right? But I'm so curious because you can't get the SSI, but it sounded like you said you have Medicaid. So whatever you're doing, you have Medicaid. Oh, in case you didn't know this, if you're not on doc now and you are on Medicaid and I want to make sure I say this right, and you go on DAC, and the DAC money alone would disqualify you from SSI and or I think the Medicaid, just the DAC. I know there's a rule about if you move from SSI and off SSI, you won't lose the Medicaid because of the DAC. It was a protective thing. It's really awesome. Just because of the DAC money. If you have other monies that put you over, that's a different story. But if it's just a DAC. And it could apply to this situation, but you're going to have to check it out. Because if you don't have SSI, I'm assuming it would still apply, but you need to talk to the Medicaid office and find out. But I forget the number of the statute, but you could look it up. It's a law that protects DAC people from losing the Medicaid they had before the DAC. Okay, super important. It was a really great law. I totally approve of it. Medical coder. I don't know what that is in response to. Russ says, current SSI and SSDI below 1900. Then where do you get the 1350 from? Oh, your own. I get it. You have SSDI, Russ? And you get a little bit of SSI with it? Because it's below the SSI amount. And you're going to DAC, which is going to be more. Yeah, I think you have that protection with the Medicaid. Double check. It's super, super important, right? Because 1350 is not a lot of money to survive on while paying for Medicare premiums, you know? Seeing behavioral health from PTSD and anxiety, good. I think, Laura, I'm really sorry for all your medical problems, because that's not we don't want that when we're going into our best years ever, right? But I think you have a good case from what you've told me. I don't know a single lawyer that would say otherwise. Danny says, real quick, say there was a client named Rodney and his attorney, it's Saj. You're a clown. And his DLI date is June 26th. Well, it's never going to be June 26th. DLI, guys, for anyone who doesn't know, is date last insured. He's saying, what if the date last insured is June 26th? It's not. It's going to be June 30th, if anything. Should he stay in pain? In pan. Oh, so Danny's asking about, and you didn't have to say the word Rodney, Danny. if you know, how is it if you have a case and in the middle of your case and you're heading to hearing, say, or recon, and you have a DLI that's going to expire in the middle? It means that your prior evidence before your DLI better be top notch. So it means you probably should have made sure you really listen to that lawyer as soon as that lawyer started telling you what to do, because none of the stuff you do after can really help you, by and large. Unless you can get your DLI back now by getting work credits, working part-time. Now, if you have a concurrent case because you ran out of money and now you have an SSI case, or you should have an SSI case because now you're running out of money that you've been, like, you know, using your savings or whatever, then your SSI could still be something you could prevail on, because that does not involve a DLI. It just involves being poor enough. Texas Chick says, hi, Texas Chick. What do you say? Shiloh, quiet. What do you say when a doctor or a judge asks you how you're doing? What is the proper response? Just tell them the truth. I wouldn't spend an hour on it, though. I don't really know that they ask that. It's a stupid question to ask at a hearing, so I don't think they're going to ask you that. How are you today? Are we having fun? I mean, they're not there to play games, and they're pretty compassionate, you know. I need my water gun to shoot the dog. Just barking. Denny says, oops, that's a repeat. Oh, okay, you're calling that an interview. Laverle is referring to the fact that the DBS worker wants to talk to her. It's not really an interview. She's just going to ask you questions, past relevant work. But yeah, I suppose you could think of it as an interview, because at interviews, they ask you questions too. But you're not interviewing for a job. So don't try to sell yourself as having, don't glamorize your job, you know. Never go shy on the physical, arduous things you had to do, even if they weren't that common. That is really important. Some people try to be like, well, I was a supervisor. And I used to do this. So if you're a hands-on, let's say you're a supervisor, which is like a team lead. Let's say you're a team lead supervisor in a physical environment like a factory where you guys are moving heavy things and da-da-da. And yeah, you're the supervisor, but you're also the hands-on worker. You just happen to have more seniority than them, so you're the supervisor. You want them to know the physical nature of your job. Really important. And if you took it, if you checked off who showed up that day, that takes all of 30 seconds. Don't say you did reports for an hour in the morning if that's the report you did. 30 seconds. I checked off who was here and who wasn't. You know what I mean? Do not over glamorize what you do. If you want to hurt you, be honest about it. You know. Russ says Medicare and Medicare. I think you mean Medicare and Medicaid. Yeah. Because you had said earlier dual. What is DAC? Sorry, I had to ask. No problem, T-Cash. That's disabled adult child. So if a person is disabled, regardless of when they prove it, if a person is disabled between the ages of 18 and 22, at some point in there, and it's continued on, and later on they don't do anything to defeat what the illegal finding of disabled if they were able to prove it at the time, but we're usually going back in hindsight now. So now they're 35 and dad retires and collects Social Security. That adult child who has been disabled and never worked more than SGA for any sustained period and has medical proofs that he was disabled between 18. It could be when he was 10, but he has to no later than 22. Does he have to prove it? So I should say it that way. No later than 22. There's proof that he was disabled before age 22. He could get a DAC benefit, disabled adult child. It's an auxiliary benefit based on dad's record. It's awesome. Dad worked for it, dad paid for it, and it's something that is extra. It doesn't take away from dad's benefit. It's just calculated on his work record. And it's one of the many different insurances that are in there that should it come up in your family, then we have this insurance can kick out. You know, same thing with spouses. There's different spouse ones and everything. So it's the exception to a child of a parent having to be under 18 or 19 to get a dependent benefit, because they recognize that a child who was disabled so young, at some point before 22, they never really had an opportunity to earn a reasonably full work record and develop their own work history that they could then file for their own SSDI. And even if you can file for your own SSDI, it might be very low if you're disabled because you're part-time, you were never over SGA. So you can get your own, which maybe that's $500 a month, but then you can get, if dad's is $4,000, you can get $2,000 from dad, from his record. Now you've got the $2,000 would take the place of what would otherwise be your $500. So it's a really good thing, and it also gets you Medicare. It's a recognition that, you know, young people that are disabled, super young, didn't get a chance to pay for their own Social Security insurance. You know, every parent wants to take care of their kids, so that's how that's done. Marucho says, I think we're on our last question. How adorable is your bird? I know. Hey, Tasha? Yeah. She's a character. Yes, she is. Today she's been up all afternoon. I thought she slept a hair, cooperating, listening, and being a very time. You know what? Because I fed her in the very beginning. Do you guys remember the one day, it was a couple of weeks ago, she was being really obnoxious. She might have been up here. Right now I have her perched on my little table back here. And she was really obnoxious, but I hadn't fed her any kibbles, any treats. Let's see if she wants another one. Tosh, did you want a little cookie? I don't know. I don't think she's that hungry, because otherwise she'd be like, normally when she's hungry or she sees you eating and she's hungry, she'll say, cracker, cracker. And I think she's learning a couple other things. Like, you have to listen, you know, when they first saying something you don't recognize. I think she said, like, how are you? How are you when I go downstairs? She says night-night when I go to bed now, because I turn off the lights. And the other birds get a cover, because this is what we've always done. But when we adopted her, the lady said she doesn't like to be covered, so she's not covered. And she'll say, night-night. It's really kind of cute. And if you come down in the morning, usually she'll say, hello, hello. You remember that, Dimple? She was just like, because she'll walk really loud, and she'll say, hey, if you're eating something, and I wasn't eating in front of her, but she expects when she's in here to get treats from, you know, me, mom, or grandma, whatever you want to call me. You know, she expects to be a little spoiled, so when she wasn't getting it, she was letting me know she was not happy. So, but yeah, she's a honey, right? All right. Any more questions, guys? We're good. We're over the 2-hour mark, about 2:15. I don't mind taking another one or two. I'm still kicking, but if not, I got a ton of stuff to do. Anybody? All right. Sounds good. Everybody have a great week. I hope to see you next Wednesday, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you can check into our 12 p.m. pre-recordeds. T-Cash has a question. That would be appreciated, because that really greatly supports the channel. Yeah. So that will be great. And I have a couple things in the works that I'm working on for some of the members. Not some of the members, all the members. I hope they like it. But anyway, Lori B., you're very welcome. And fingers crossed for you, my dear. You deserve to win. I could tell. T. Cash says, I'm just going to address this. Are lawyers required to take a case? No. Thank God. No offense, but imagine if you had to take a case just because someone wanted to represent them. There's a lot of people that don't have cases that merit disability. They don't know it. They don't know that they don't meet the law. They know their own reality, but that's not the same as meeting the law. And, you know, why should we have to? I'll tell you one thing. If we were getting paid by the hour, if every client put in a $10,000 retainer and we pull out, you know, every hour work, we'd take all the cases in the world. You could have the crappiest case ever. I'd tell you it's crappy, that you might not want to do it. And then, you know, hopefully you wouldn't do it. But if they let us do that, but that's against the law. So you can't do that in this field. Otherwise, you can darn well be sure every lawyer would be willing to take your case, you know. Danny says, if a bird told me night-night, I would crack up. Crack her up? Get it? Yeah, she pretty much says that every night. Night-night. If she wants to come out of her cage, she'll say, up, up. You go like this and there, and she climbs on your hand. Up, up. And that's, she'll come out of her cage. If I want her to go back in her cage, like, she'll hang out with me for the rest of the afternoon probably, but eventually I'll have to take her and so she gets some water and stuff like that. And I'll just say, up, up. And she'll say, up. Or I often don't have to say it. If I just put my hand there, because she already wants to be on my hand a lot, you know. She just doesn't get to sit on my hand very much because I'm always doing something. Whether I'm working or out there trying to clean or pack things up. I'm trying to declutter. A house of 4 to 5 people for 23 years. It gets a little crazy. Tosh, my, or T Cash, I should say. She is, I believe she was 34 when we got her. So I don't know when her birthday is. We got her in September. So I'm thinking this September, I'll just say she's 35. And I believe she's maybe halfway through her life expectancy. Laverne says, how long does it take to get a decision after you pass? Oh, that should be fast, Laverne. Oh, that's right. That's the question you had above. My apologies. That should be pretty fast because usually that's all the medical's done in their mind. You know, unless something big happens, you know, and you tell them it should be a fast, I'm going to call it a determination because decisions are technically by the judge later. You have to go to a judge. So the determination should be soon, I think, after you get that information to her. So overall, fingers crossed for you. And if you definitely come back regardless, but definitely tell us if it's good because, you know, I think it gives people hope that, yeah, see, people do win. All right, guys. I want everyone to have a great week. Be safe. And, yeah, be smart. And God bless our veterans. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.